You know how some families always talk about everything? The ones that pull up old photo albums and pass around embarrassing stories at dinner, where the past is something that lives out loud? Yeah. Mine wasn't like that. Growing up, my mom never talked about where she came from. Sure, I knew she was born in Mexico, some border town in the north, along the Rio Grande, close to Texas. I knew she came to the US for college. I knew she met my dad while working her first job as a translator for a law firm. And I knew she'd been living in Arizona ever since. But beyond that? Nothing. No old pictures of her childhood. No names of grandparents. No cousins who visited during the summer. When I asked about her family, she'd laugh it off. My father's side were politicians, she'd say. And my mother's side were thieves. I could never tell which was more dangerous. As a kid, I always thought that was just her being funny. I'd roll my eyes and move on. But as I got older, that joke started to feel like a wall. Something she'd put between us and whatever came before. My dad would tell me, "Don't push her. Some people survive things they never want to talk about." He never said more than that, and I never had the guts to dig deeper. But the curiosity never left me. Especially because of one night. A night that never stopped living in the back of my head. I must have been around 10 or 11. It was one of those nights where the air conditioning broke and I couldn't sleep, so I got up to use the bathroom. Our hallway was dark, but I could see a faint glow coming from the living room. I assumed someone had left the TV on. But when I walked past the hallway and peeked in, there was no TV light. Just my mom. Sitting on the couch in the dark, her phone pressed to her ear. I couldn't understand what she was saying. It was all in Spanish, fast and sharp, with that rhythm she never used around me. But one thing stuck out. She kept repeating a name. R. I didn't catch the full name. Just the first letter. Over and over, like it was a person. Like it meant something. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shouting. But her voice had this edge to it, like she was right on the verge of losing control but wouldn't let herself. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the broken AC. Without really thinking, I reached for the light switch. I guess I just wanted to see her. Confirm it was really her. The second the light came on, she didn't flinch. Didn't jump or yell. She just looked at me. Her face was calm, but her eyes? They were hard. Cold in a way I'd never seen. She hung up without saying a word to whoever was on the line. Go back to bed, she said. Flat. No warmth. Like a stranger borrowing her voice. I went back to bed. We never talked about it. For years I tried to convince myself it didn't matter. Maybe it was a family thing. Maybe R was an old friend. Maybe I'd imagined the tone in her voice. But I never forgot that look. Years went by. I finished middle school. High school. Went to college in state. Mom stayed the same, sharp, private, composed. She worked from home most days, doing contract translations and freelance editing. Kept the house clean, made dinner most nights, listened to NPR in the mornings and classical music in the afternoons. She didn't drink. Didn't have many friends. Never left the state, as far as I knew. And she never brought up Mexico. Sometimes, when we visited Dad's side of the family, people would ask innocent questions. So, where did your mom grow up exactly? Does she still have family back in Mexico? And I'd give the same shrug every time. I don't really know. You'd be surprised how fast that can kill a conversation. My mom never corrected me. She just smiled that closed-mouth smile of hers, sipped her tea, and changed the subject. Looking back, it wasn't just evasiveness. It was control. She knew exactly how to steer things away. How to keep herself wrapped in fog. But no fog lasts forever. It was nearly a year after I graduated college when everything changed. I was on a road trip through southern Arizona, heading to meet an old roommate who'd moved out near the state line. The drive was long and boring, flat highway, empty landscape, the occasional gas station that looked like it hadn't changed since 1978. I'd been on the road for about 5 hours when I got bored of music and started calling people. Random friends, old classmates, even a girl I'd been talking to off and on. Nobody picked up. So, on a whim, I called my mom. We didn't talk on the phone much, she wasn't the type. But she answered on the second ring. Hola, hijo. We spent the first few minutes talking about nothing. Weather. Gas prices. She asked if I'd remembered to check my oil. Then we landed on our favorite shared obsession, soccer. My mom is a fan of the game in a way that most Americans just aren't. She knows stats, lineups, transfer rumors. She can talk Champions League like a seasoned commentator. We got into a debate about who would win the next match between Real Madrid and Man City, both of us laughing, arguing. And then I saw it. 2 pickup trucks. Parked side by side, blocking the road. I slowed down, confused. There was no sign of a crash. No hazard lights. Just 2 trucks, engines off, sitting in the middle of nowhere. I think something's up ahead, I said into the phone. Hold on. What do you mean? There's some trucks. Blocking the road. I don't know. I crept forward until I was about 20 feet away. Then 3 men got out. All holding guns. Time stopped. Mom, I whispered. I think I'm being robbed. What? Her voice changed instantly. Sharp. Alert. There's guys. With guns. Coming toward my car. She didn't panic. Didn't scream. Just said, don't hang up. I was frozen. My brain couldn't process anything. Behind me, another car appeared. A black SUV. No plates. It pulled up and stopped maybe 50 feet back. Trapped. One of the men tapped on my window with the barrel of his rifle. I dropped the phone on the seat and raised my hands. They barked something in Spanish, too fast for me to understand. I stepped out, hands in the air. They patted me down, took my wallet, my keys, my phone. One of them climbed into my driver's seat. I thought I was dead. But then, the guy in my car? He didn't end the call. He listened. And then he started talking. To my mom. I couldn't hear her side. The windows were closed. But I saw his face. Saw the way his expression changed. Like he recognized something. And then I heard it. He said, R. Twice. Just like she had, all those years ago. He said it slowly. Carefully. Like confirming a name. Then the other 2 came closer. The one inside rolled down the window and spoke to them. They all looked at me. Hard. Calculating. I didn't breathe. Then they gave it all back. My keys. My phone. My license. They kept the cash. The last guy, as he handed me my things, smiled. Tax, he said. For who she is. They got in their trucks and drove off, one forward, one back, and the SUV turning off into the desert. Gone. Like it never happened. I stood there in the middle of the road, shaking, my ears ringing. I drove for 15 minutes before I pulled over and called her back. She answered instantly. What did you say to them? Silence. I know you talked to them. They said R. Who is that? What's going on? She took a long breath. Don't ask questions you're not ready to hear answers to. I laughed, bitter, nervous. Are you serious? I just almost got executed in the desert, and you're giving me cryptic riddles? I kept you safe. No. You knew them. You knew who they were. I said enough to make them let you go. That's not what I'm asking, and you know it. Another long silence. Then she said, I'm tracking your location. Drive to a public place. Don't stop until you see people. She hung up. That night, I sat in a Denny's parking lot for over an hour, staring at my hands. I didn't know who my mother was anymore. But I was starting to think. I never really had. After that night in the desert, nothing looked the same. The world didn't change. My neighborhood didn't suddenly grow darker. The sun still rose, the coffee shops still opened on time, my friends still posted memes and playlists like life was normal. But something inside me had been pried open, something deep and raw and cold. I started seeing things differently. People on the street, strangers in the supermarket, any one of them could be connected to that night. The way the man had said, "Tax for who she is." That sentence repeated in my head like an echo in a locked room. For days I didn't call my mom. And she didn't call me. We were both waiting. Waiting to see if the other would crack. Eventually, I drove to her house. I didn't tell her I was coming. I didn't even text. I just pulled into the driveway of the same little adobe home I'd grown up in and walked through the front door with my spare key. She was in the kitchen, chopping cilantro. She didn't look surprised. Didn't even glance at me. "I left the door unlocked," she said. "Figured you'd come eventually." I stepped into the kitchen and leaned against the wall. "I need to know what's going on." She finished chopping, slid the greens into a bowl, and finally looked up. "Why now?" "Because 3 guys with guns just let me go after talking to you. Because they knew a name you said in the dark when I was 10 years old. Because you've been hiding something my whole life, and I think I just saw a piece of it." She studied me for a moment. Then she turned off the stove and sat at the table. "I won't lie to you," she said. "But I won't tell you everything." "Why not?" "Because there are things you can't unknow. Once you have them in your head, they don't leave. They live there. Like mold. Try me." She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded, just once, and began to speak. "I was born in a town called Piedras Blancas. It's not on most maps. It sits near the border, in a place the government pretends doesn't exist unless they want to run oil through it. My father worked for the state. My mother was something else." "What do you mean?" "She ran a business. Or that's what she called it. In reality, she worked with people who moved things. Drugs, weapons, people, whatever someone was paying for. She was good at it. Invisible. Smart. Cold when she needed to be. And you?" "I watched. I learned. I didn't ask questions. When you grow up around violence, it stops being shocking. It becomes air." I swallowed hard. "So you were in the cartel?" She tilted her head. "I didn't say that. But you were involved. I knew things. I passed messages. I translated deals when my mother didn't trust outsiders. I stayed close enough to stay alive. Far enough not to be used." "What about R?" I asked. "You said that name the night I caught you on the phone. The men in the desert said it too." She looked away. "R was my uncle," she said softly. "My mother's brother. And the one person in that world I trusted. For a while." "What happened?" "He was the one who helped me leave." That surprised me. "He helped you escape?" She nodded. "At first. He paid for my first semester at the university. Got me across the border with clean papers. He said he wanted one of us to get out. He used to call me La Semilla, the seed. Said I was the only one in the family who had a chance to grow somewhere else." "So what changed?" She took a long breath. "He didn't let go. Years passed, but he always kept a string tied to me. Just in case." "In case of what?" "In case he ever needed me again." I sat down across from her, trying to keep my voice even. "So those men in the desert, they were his?" "I don't know," she said. "Maybe. Maybe not. R has connections all over. People who owe him favors. People who remember me." "Why would they let me go?" "Because I reminded them of me," she said. "Because I asked?" Just like that. She met my gaze. "That's not a world where you ask for favors. It's a world where you cash them in." I sat back in my chair stunned. "So I'm alive, because of a favor?" "Yes." The room went quiet for a long time. Finally I asked, "How long have you been running?" She smiled, but it wasn't happy. "Since I was 19. "And Dad?" "He knew pieces. Enough to be cautious. Not enough to be in danger. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't want you to grow up looking over your shoulder. I stood and started pacing. Well, guess what? That's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm sorry, she said. But you were never meant to be a part of this. I left so that you could live a life without shadows. But the shadows found me anyway. She didn't respond. I drove home that night with my head spinning. I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was no longer mine. That I'd just been given a second-hand identity, one stitched together from half-truths and ghost stories. The next morning, I started digging. I searched for Piedras Blancas. Barely a mention online. A blip on a topographic map. No real census data. I searched for R. Just a letter. A whisper in Cartel forums. No photos. No full name. But some stories. Rumors about a man who dealt in leverage. Who never appeared in person. Who solved problems with secrets, not bullets. I kept going. Weeks passed. Then, one night, I got a DM on a burner Reddit account I'd set up to post in Cartel watch threads. Stop looking. She got out. Don't make her go back. No username. No trace. I stopped for a while after that. But the questions didn't go away. Then, about a month later, I got invited to a family barbecue, my dad's side. Cousins, uncles, the usual. Everyone was drinking, laughing, playing cards. One of my older uncles, already a few beers deep, leaned over to me and said, "Hey, remember that one year your mom disappeared? What was it, 99? She was gone for like a whole year." I blinked. "What do you mean disappeared?" He laughed. "I dunno, man. She just vanished. Your dad wouldn't say anything. Just kept telling us she was fine, studying or something. Weirdest thing. That night, I went back through old family photos. Sure enough, there was a gap. No pictures of my mom from 1999. Not a single one. No explanation. Just a blank spot in the timeline. I couldn't stop thinking about it. About what could make a person disappear for a year and come back unchanged on the surface. But I already knew the answer. She hadn't just left Mexico. She'd had to disappear from herself. Erase everything that connected her to that life. Only, something was pulling her back. Or maybe pulling me. A few days later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. No stamps. Just left at my door. Inside was a photo. Black and white. A young woman, my mother, unmistakably, standing next to a man with his face half turned away. On his arm was a tattoo of a coiled serpent wrapped around a dagger. I'd seen that symbol before. It was the emblem of a small but deadly faction that had once operated in northern Mexico, known for never revealing the identities of its leaders. Whispers on encrypted forums referred to it simply as La Lengua. On the back of the photo, scrawled in red ink. She never really left. Neither will you. I dropped the photo. My hands were shaking. I looked out the window. Across the street, an unfamiliar car was idling. Lights off. Engine running. Watching. I didn't call the police. I stood at the window, watching that car with its headlights off and motor humming low, like some predator too patient to pounce. It sat there for maybe 5 minutes, long enough for my stomach to tie itself into knots, before pulling away slowly, tires crunching against gravel as it disappeared into the night. I wanted to believe it was a coincidence. But I knew better. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next morning. I didn't tell anyone. Not my dad. Not my friends. Not even my mom. Instead, I went to work like nothing had happened, answering emails with one eye on the door. I checked every parked car near my apartment. Every unfamiliar face on the street. It was like paranoia had fused with my nervous system, rewired my senses. The photo kept playing in my head. My mother in black and white, younger but undeniably her. That expression, not smiling, not quite blank, just unreadable. And that tattoo on the man's arm. A snake wrapped around a dagger. I had traced it back to a group called La Lengua, the tongue. They weren't big, not compared to the cartels that made the news. But the whispers about them were worse. Smaller, yes, but surgical. Efficient. Specializing in secrets, leverage, and the enforcement of silence. They were rumored to deal in people more than product, information brokers, assassins, blackmail artists. The kind of organization that didn't need to advertise its presence. You only knew they existed when it was already too late. And now, someone had left that photo on my doorstep. The message was clear: I was getting too close. And if I didn't stop digging, they'd make me stop. But there was something else in that message too, something colder, more intimate. She never really left. Neither will you. It wasn't just a warning. It was a statement of fact. Like fate. Like blood. That weekend I drove out to my dad's house. He was in the garage, working on his old motorcycle like he always did when something was bothering him. I didn't waste time with small talk. When did you know? I asked. He looked up from the engine, wiping his hands on a rag. Know what? That she wasn't just some immigrant student. That she had ties to people like them. He didn't ask who them were. He didn't even blink. He sat on the stool beside the toolbox and let out a long sigh. I figured it out after our second year together, he said. There were signs, you know? Things that didn't add up. People she avoided. News stories she reacted to too strongly. And the way she could make people nervous without raising her voice. You didn't leave? I thought about it. I almost did. But I loved her. And by the time I realized how deep it went, you were already on the way. I sat down across from him, arms crossed, trying to process. Why didn't you tell me? He gave me a look. You were a kid. What was I supposed to say? Hey son, your mom used to be involved with a criminal organization that specializes in disappearing people? I would have understood eventually. Maybe. Or maybe you'd have run straight into the fire like you're doing now. I looked away, jaw clenched. You know, he continued, she gave up everything to get out. She changed her name. Burned every bridge. We moved 3 times in your first 5 years just to be sure no one was following. She never told me any of that. She was trying to protect you. That's all she's ever tried to do. I didn't respond. Later that night, back at my apartment, I sat on the couch with the photo laid out in front of me. I'd scanned it earlier and run it through facial recognition software, but it turned up nothing. No hits. No matches. Either the man beside her was dead, or he never existed on paper. Then I noticed something new. In the bottom corner of the photo, barely visible in the shadows, was a number. Handwritten. 1137. I'd missed it before. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a time. I Googled it. Nothing useful. Then I searched through government documents, declassified case files, old police reports, immigration records. Still nothing. It took me 3 hours to think like her. I opened an encrypted archive site run by ex-journalists and whistleblowers. A place people uploaded records they were too scared to publish. In the search bar, I typed 1137 Cartel Mexico. One result. A scanned document from 1999. A list of names. The title, written in Spanish, translated to Confirmed Missing and Presumed Eliminated, Operation 1137. My chest tightened as I scrolled. Row after row of names. Ages. Affiliations. Suspected loyalty breaches. Almost all were marked, desaparecido, disappeared. Near the bottom of the list, one name caught my eye. Luciana G., 21, suspected informant, presumed dead. My mother. She was on the list. Someone had tried to erase her. And failed. That's when I realized something else. The photo. The timing. The number. Someone wasn't warning me. They were inviting me. They wanted me to see. But why? And then it hit me. Her uncle. The only one she trusted. The one who helped her escape. What if he was still alive? What if he was still watching? I didn't sleep that night. Again. The next morning, I called in sick and drove to the university downtown. My mom's alma mater. I went to the archives and requested student records from the late 90s. Technically, I wasn't allowed access to private records, but the clerk on duty was old and bored, and a $20 bill went a long way. I found her file. Luciana Garcia. Transferred in 1998 from a Mexican university. Clean grades. Declared major in linguistics. Emergency contact, Rafael Gutierrez. There he was. A real name. A real connection. I copied the file, took photos with my phone, and left before anyone could ask questions. That night, I sent an encrypted message to the same Reddit account that had warned me weeks earlier. I'm looking for Rafael Gutierrez. Tell him his niece's son needs answers. The next morning, I had a response. A link. No message. Just coordinates embedded in the URL. I clicked it. A map. Northern Mexico. A town I'd never heard of. One road in. One road out. It took everything in me not to throw my phone across the room. This was insane. Dangerous. Possibly suicidal. But it was the only thread I had left. And deep down I already knew. I was going to follow it. The next day, I booked a flight. I told no one. Not my mom. Not my dad. I left a note in my desk drawer, just in case I didn't come back. All it said was, if anything happens to me, tell her I forgive her. Crossing the border wasn't the scary part. I took a commercial flight to El Paso, rented a car, and drove into northern Mexico through one of the less congested crossings. The agent asked a few basic questions, barely glanced at my ID, and waved me through. No red flags. No alarms. But from the moment I crossed into Mexico, everything felt different. Not dangerous exactly, just foreign in a way that tugged at something deep in me. The buildings, the signs, the language. It should have been familiar. I was Mexican by blood, after all. I'd grown up hearing Spanish in the kitchen, watching soccer with my mom, eating tamales during Christmas. But here? I felt like an outsider wearing a borrowed skin. The drive took 5 hours. The map link had dropped a pin on a village called San Miguel del Cabra, nestled in the dusty hills just south of the desert's edge. No real infrastructure, no airport, barely a presence on Google Maps. One road wound into it from the north, and the same road wound out of it to the south. Blink and you'd miss it. As I pulled into town, I slowed the car and took in the scenery. A few low buildings, concrete, sun-bleached, cracked. A small church with chipped paint. An open-air market that looked like it hadn't seen a full crowd in years. Everything had the texture of forgotten things. I stopped at a roadside stall and bought a bottle of water. The man behind the counter looked at me like he knew I didn't belong. Not with anger, more like warning. "Buscas Aldwin?" he asked. "You looking for someone?" I hesitated. "Sí. Rafael Gutierrez." The man's face didn't move, but his eyes hardened. He nodded once, small, deliberate, then pointed up a narrow dirt path at the edge of the town. "No golpes la puerta," he said. "El sabre que legaste." Don't knock. He'll know you've arrived. The walk up that path felt longer than it was. My boots kicked up dust with every step. My hands were sweating. I wasn't sure what I expected to find at the end. A man with a cane? A ghost with a gun? A warning shot? What I found was a modest adobe house. One story. A small porch. A rocking chair that creaked slowly in the wind. And a man sitting in it. He was thin but sturdy looking, with weathered skin and eyes like polished coal. His hair was white, slicked back. He wore a white button-up shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and brown slacks. One hand rested on a cane, the other held a cigarette that had long since burned out. When I stopped in front of him, he looked at me for a long time before speaking. "You have her eyes," he said. I said nothing. "You shouldn't have come," he added. "But you were always going to." I swallowed. "You're Rafael Gutierrez." He nodded once. I took a breath. "I'm Luciana's son." "I know who you are." "Then you know why I'm here." "I do. But that doesn't mean I'll give you what you want." "I want the truth." "No," he said, standing up slowly. "You want to understand the lie you've lived in. That's not the same thing." He turned and walked inside. Left the door open. I followed. The inside of the house was sparse. A bookshelf. A radio. A table with 3 chairs. On one wall, a faded flag of Mexico. On the other, a framed photo, black and white, the same one I'd been sent, only uncut and clearer. There was a 4th person in the original frame. My mother. The tattooed man. A young Raphael. And me. A baby in my mother's arms. I froze. He saw me looking. "She stayed here for a year. After she disappeared. Before she built her new life. You helped her." "I protected her." "From what?" He sat at the table. "From the very people I once served." "From myself." I took a seat across from him. "Then tell me. Tell me what happened." He looked out the window, silent for a few beats. "Your mother was never meant to be part of it," he began. "She was smart. Too smart. But she was born into the wrong family. My sister, her mother, was powerful. Cold. She ran logistics for La Lengua before the group even had a name. She recruited her own daughter? She didn't recruit her. She groomed her. Used her. That's what people like us do. We exploit what we make." He paused. Lit a new cigarette. "I loved your mother like a daughter. I tried to shield her from the worst of it. But when she came of age, they brought her in. She ran messages. She translated for foreign buyers. She held secrets. She was a part of it. Yes. But she was never of it." He exhaled smoke slowly. "Then came Operation 1137. The Purge. Your mother knew it was coming. She had seen too much. Maybe said too much. So she ran. I helped her. They thought she was dead. I made sure they did. I forged a body. Burned a house. Buried the wrong person." I leaned forward. "And what about the photo? Why was it sent to me?" He looked me dead in the eyes. "Because someone wants her to come back." My skin went cold. "What?" "There's a war brewing. La Lengua splintered years ago. New factions. New leaders. But they remember the old blood. Your mother carries it. And you?" He pointed at me. "You are leverage." I sat back, breath stolen from my lungs. "You knew they would come for me." "Yes." "Then why let me find you?" "Because I wanted you to hear it from someone who still cares." "You care?" "She saved my life once. I owed her the truth. I still do." He stood and walked to the back room. Came out with a small wooden box. Set it on the table in front of me. "Inside is everything you'll need to understand what's coming," he said. "Letters. Documents. Contacts. Safe houses." I hesitated. "Why now?" "Because the first move has already been made. You just haven't felt it yet." I opened the box. Inside were stacks of aged papers, sealed envelopes, a flash drive, and a black flip phone. The first envelope had my name written on it in my mother's handwriting. I didn't open it yet. "When you leave," Raphael said, "go north. Don't stop in town. They'll be watching. I'll send them the message." "What message?" "That you found nothing." "And what happens to you?" He smiled. "I've lived my life in shadows. Maybe it's time I stay there." He walked me to the door. Before I left, I turned back. "Was she one of them? Truly?" "No," he said. She was something they feared more. What? Someone who got out. I drove without stopping. 2 hours into the drive, I pulled over on an empty stretch of road, shut off the engine, and opened the envelope. It held 3 things. A note. A photo of me as a baby with my mother, her eyes alert, protective, a small knife visible in the waistband of her jeans. And a second flash drive. The note read, "If you're reading this, it means the past has found us. I didn't want this life for you. But if you must face it, do so with both eyes open. You are not them. But you are mine. And that means you're stronger than they know." Signed M. I crossed the border back into the States just before sunrise. No flags waved. No warnings were issued. On paper, nothing had changed. But in my bones, everything had. The air smelled different on the other side, lighter maybe, but only because I was carrying the weight now. The truth, the box, the drive, my inheritance, apparently. Not money. Not property. Just shadows. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove straight to a cheap motel off the interstate and paid in cash. No real name, no ID. The kind of place where the clerk didn't ask questions, and the door locks never quite lined up with the frames. I pulled the curtains tight and laid everything out on the bed. 2 flash drives. A stack of old documents, mostly in Spanish, handwritten letters, photocopies of IDs, coordinates. And one name that kept appearing, over and over again. Los Silencios. The silence. Another faction? A code name? A warning? I didn't know yet. I started with the flash drive my mom had left me. Plugged it into my laptop, powered entirely by battery and paranoia. The folder inside was labeled simply, "Read me." Inside were dozens of documents, audio recordings, and a single video file. I clicked on the video. The screen lit up with static, then faded to an image of my mother, maybe 10 years younger. She looked exactly the same, composed, clear-eyed, quietly dangerous. She was sitting in what looked like a small cabin, dimly lit, a scarf around her neck and no makeup on. "If you're seeing this," she said, "then I failed." My heart stopped. I recorded this in case the past ever came knocking again. In case the truth reached you before I could tell it myself. You probably know most of it by now. I was raised inside La Lengua. I left. I ran. But I never really escaped. She paused. Your father doesn't know everything. Not because I don't trust him, but because trust doesn't survive in that world. I kept him safe by lying to him. I kept you safe by pretending I didn't exist before America. She leaned forward. There's something you need to understand. I didn't leave them because I was scared. I left because I saw what they were becoming. And what they wanted me to become. She held up a photo, the same one I had in the box. Her, me as a baby, and Raphael. I would have done anything to keep you out of that world. I still will. She smiled softly, but her eyes didn't. If I'm gone, they'll come for you. Not because of who you are, but because of who I was. Your leverage now. Insurance. A trigger. Her tone sharpened. Don't run. Don't fight them on their terms. Use the second drive. It has what they fear. Use it wisely. The screen went black. I sat in silence for a long time. When I finally opened the second flash drive, the one Raphael had given me, I understood what she meant. It was filled with names, addresses, bank accounts, recordings, proof. All the people tied to La Lengua and its successors. Judges, mayors, business owners, border agents, even 2 current U.S. representatives. The kind of information that, in the wrong hands, could start a war, or end one. I couldn't stop shaking. I closed the laptop and slid it into my backpack. Then I stared at the motel ceiling for what felt like an hour. What the hell was I supposed to do with all this? Turn it in? To who? The authorities? The same ones who were probably on this list? Journalists? How do you explain a global criminal infrastructure and expect not to be buried for it? I thought of my mom. How she must have lived every day knowing this stuff, carrying it inside her like a live grenade. And she still cooked, still cleaned, still smiled, still loved me. The motel phone rang. I didn't move. It rang again. I picked it up, heart racing. A voice, low, male, with a faint accent said, "You have something that belongs to us." Click. I stood up, grabbed my things, and left through the back window. I didn't go back to my apartment. I didn't call anyone. I didn't check my messages. I hit the road again. Spent the next few days bouncing from town to town. I used burner phones. Switched cars twice. Slept in the back seat. Every time I thought I was safe, I saw another sign, a car with dark windows in the mirror, a new flower placed on the hood of my rental, a waitress who asked if my name was David, which it wasn't. They were closing in. I finally reached out to someone I shouldn't have. A man named Tomas Aguirre. A journalist working out of Mexico City who'd been exiled after exposing a political assassination ring in 2014. Now living off the grid in New Mexico. I found him through a chain of proxies. Used my mother's name. He agreed to meet. We sat in a booth at a 24-hour diner in Santa Rosa. I handed him the second flash drive. "You sure about this?" he asked, eyeing me like a man used to last chances. "No." He slid it into his pocket. "Good. The only people I trust are the ones who aren't sure anymore. What will you do with it?" "Whatever burns the cleanest." That night, I watched him drive off in a car older than I was, probably armed to the teeth and trusting no one. I prayed he made it to wherever he was going. I didn't go with him. I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. A week later, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a burner phone and a single note. "She's gone." There was no need to ask who. I knew. I called the number attached to the phone. It rang once, then went to voicemail. A voice I didn't recognize said, "Whatever war she tried to stop is now yours to finish. Or to abandon. But if you choose silence, we will not." I threw the phone in the river. That night, I sat on a bench in the middle of nowhere and stared up at the stars. I thought about what my mom gave up. What she ran from. What she left behind in order to give me a normal life. And I thought about how the past still came crawling back, no matter how far she ran. There are two kinds of inheritances. The kind that buys you a future. And the kind that won't let you have one. I didn't choose either. But I had one anyway. So I made a decision. I drove to a small law firm in Phoenix, used an alias, and created a trust in my mother's name. In it, I deposited encrypted copies of everything from both flash drives. Labeled them with fake property claims and attached a password only I would recognize. Then I wrote a note. Not for me. For someone else. If you're reading this, it means they never stopped. Use what's inside to end them, or disappear. But don't ever look for justice in a system they built. Find something stronger. And remember, blood carries memory. But it doesn't carry destiny. I paid for 10 years of safe storage. Then I left. I don't know where I'm going next. Maybe I'll disappear the way she did. Maybe I'll build something new. Or maybe, someday, I'll come back with fire in my hands and every secret they ever buried. But until then, I am the son of a woman who walked away from shadows. And now I walk with them.